The planet Xelara was silent. Its orange skies glowed faintly as twin suns sank below jagged mountains. The Zorvans, a small alien species, stood on a rocky plateau, their multi-eyed faces full of worry. Their ship had crashed days ago, and they had no hope of repairing it. Food was running low, water was scarce, and the planet, it was not kind. For generations, the Zorvans had studied humans from afar. They knew humans were strange, unpredictable, but powerful. When all hope seemed lost, they decided to send a message, a simple request: shelter. They needed protection, a safe place to survive, and they hoped the humans would answer. The message floated across space, a tiny signal against the darkness. The Zorvans watched the skies anxiously. Days passed. Nothing came. Their hope began to fade, replaced by fear. They were alone, weak and exposed. Then, on the fifth day, something appeared on the horizon. Tiny dots, moving fast. The Zorvans blinked in disbelief. These were not ordinary ships. They were large, silver, and moving in perfect formation. As they approached, their shapes became clear: commanders, builders, and bombers. The Zorvans did not understand. Why would humans bring such forces? They only asked for shelter, not armies, not machines that could level mountains. The first ship landed with a soft thud, kicking up clouds of orange dust. A ramp extended, and humans stepped out. They were tall, strong, and confident. Their uniforms were simple, but their eyes were sharp. They did not smile, but they did not look angry either. One human, clearly the commander, raised a hand. The Zorvans froze. They had expected words, explanations, maybe even weapons, but the human only nodded and walked toward the plateau. The other humans followed, builders carrying strange tools, bombers examining the sky with mechanical eyes. The Zorvans whispered among themselves. Are they here to help or to conquer? Time seemed to stretch. The humans moved with precision, as if they already knew the planet's secrets. Builders began unloading strange machines that moved like living creatures. Their movements were strange, yet perfectly synchronized. Machines lifted boulders heavier than any Zorvan could imagine and stacked them into walls faster than the aliens could blink. The commander observed silently. He spoke to no one. He only watched, calculated, and gave small hand signals. At one point, a builder paused and looked at the Zorvans, then smiled. It was the first sign of reassurance. The humans were not hostile, but the Zorvans could not shake their unease. Bombers hovered above, sleek and sharp. Their engines made a soft hum, almost like a warning. The aliens had no idea what they were capable of. Night fell. The twin suns disappeared, leaving the plateau in darkness. The humans did not stop. Lights from their machines cut through the night. Walls rose. Structures appeared where only rocks had existed before. The Zorvans watched wide-eyed as the humans worked like a single organism. Each movement had a purpose. Each action, a plan. One Zorvan dared to approach a builder. Why do you build so fast? We only ask for shelter, he asked. The builder paused, wiped sweat from his brow, and smiled. We protect. Shelter is not just walls. It is safety. And safety must be strong. The words were simple, but their meaning was heavy. The Zorvans had never known safety like this. Their species had survived through stealth and hiding, never through strength and planning. The humans were different. By the time the twin suns rose again, the Zorvans could barely believe their eyes. A massive fortress now stood where a rocky plateau had been. Towers reached high into the sky. Thick walls surrounded the area. Strange machines patrolled silently. It was more than shelter. It was a fortress. The commander finally spoke. His voice was calm, steady, but full of authority. You are safe now. We will protect you. But you must listen. The planet is not empty. Danger comes, and we do not wait for it. We fight first. The Zorvans exchanged nervous glances. Fight first? They had only asked for shelter. They had never imagined humans would act this way. But they felt something strange, hope mixed with awe. These humans were beyond anything they had expected. As the Zorvans watched, the bombers moved into formation above. The builders worked without pause, and the commander stood silent, like a shadow of power. The aliens realized one simple truth. They had not just asked for shelter. They had summoned forces that could change the fate of their world. And in that moment, the Zorvans understood they were not alone. They had humans, and humans were not just helpers. They were commanders, builders, and bombers. They were a force of nature. A soft wind blew across the plateau, carrying dust and the distant hum of human machines. The Zorvans shivered, not from cold, but from a mixture of fear and wonder. The humans were here. The humans were real, and the planet, once hostile and empty, now felt alive. But somewhere beyond the mountains, unseen eyes watched. Threats that the Zorvans had never imagined stirred in the shadows. The humans had arrived just in time. Or perhaps just in time to face a danger bigger than anyone could foresee. The fortress stood tall. The humans prepared silently, and the Zorvans waited, knowing that their fate and the fate of their species had just changed forever. The morning sun painted the Xelara skies in pale orange. The Zorvans stared at the fortress the humans had built overnight. Every wall, every tower, every strange machine seemed alive. Yet, the most astonishing thing was how fast it had appeared. One Zorvan, named Velker, stepped closer to the humans. How? How did you build all this so quickly? He asked, his voice trembling. A builder, tall and muscular, wiped his hands on a cloth and smiled. We do not wait. We build first. Then we protect. The words were simple, but their meaning struck the Zorvans deeply. To them, survival was slow, careful, and hidden. But humans did not hide. They acted, and the world itself seemed to bend to their will. The builders moved like a single organism. Machines lifted boulders heavier than a Zorvan could lift in 100 days. Others dug trenches at impossible speed. Some machines hovered, carrying entire sections of walls. Each action was coordinated, precise, and fast. The Zorvans could barely follow. Velker walked along construction lines, observing in awe. These machines, they move like they think, he whispered. They do, said another builder, overhearing him. We designed them to understand the plan, to follow it without confusion. They do not hesitate. The Zorvans watched as the humans communicated silently, with subtle hand signals and glances. Every worker knew exactly what to do. There was no shouting, no chaos, yet everything was in motion. It was unlike anything Velker had ever seen. By midday, a massive gate was almost complete. Humans worked on it with intricate precision. Strange symbols and mechanical designs covered the walls, and the Zorvans had no idea what they meant. Were they for decoration, for defense, or something else entirely? The Zorvans noticed the humans moving swiftly, not only building, but testing their creations. Machines rolled forward and back, adjusting, correcting, improving. Builders climbed towers and inspected walls, pointing and making adjustments. Bombers hovered above, their sleek forms scanning the horizon. It was as if the fortress itself was alive, breathing, and preparing for a threat that had not yet arrived. Velker spoke to a builder again. Why do you make it so complicated? The builder smiled, looking up at the massive gate. Complicated? Maybe, but it works. Every piece, every machine, every wall has a purpose. Shelter is not just walls. It is safety, and safety must be complete. The Zorvans nodded, slowly understanding. Their species had never thought this way. To them, survival meant hiding, escaping, or bargaining. Humans built to fight and to dominate, to create a fortress that no enemy could breach. Hours passed. Structures rose higher. Towers reached into the sky, casting long shadows across the plateau. Humans worked tirelessly, yet they did not seem tired. Builders coordinated with bombers, who hovered in formation, ready for orders. The Zorvans realized the humans were not just building. They were planning for every possible danger, even those the aliens could not imagine. Velker felt a strange mixture of fear and admiration. Humans were terrifying in their efficiency. They were also magnificent. Every action was purposeful. Every decision calculated. They were not only protecting the Zorvans, they were teaching them a new way to survive. As evening approached, the fortress began to take shape completely. Walls were solid, towers stood tall, and strange machines patrolled silently. The Zorvans could walk freely inside, but the humans were everywhere, watching, adjusting, preparing. One young Zorvan asked the commander, "Will this really protect us?" The commander looked at the fortress, then at the young alien. His eyes were calm, confident. "It will, but protection is not only walls. It is preparation, speed, and readiness. You will see soon enough." Night fell. The builders did not stop. Machines glowed softly in the dark. Some Zorvans dared to touch them, only to feel a pulse, as if the machines were alive. The aliens whispered among themselves, "These humans, they are not like us. They do not fear. They act, they build, and they fight." A sudden sound came from the mountains beyond. The Zorvans froze. Was it predator or something worse? The humans barely reacted. Bombers hovered higher, scanning the horizon with mechanical eyes. Builders continued working, unfazed. Velker whispered, "They are ready for anything." Indeed, the fortress was no longer just a shelter. It was a living defense, ready to adapt, to react, to protect. The Zorvans had asked for help, and humans had not only answered, they had changed the rules of survival itself. As the night deepened, the Zorvans realized something profound. They had never seen a species like humans before. They were builders, yes, but also protectors. They acted with purpose, courage, and a strange kind of instinct that seemed almost superhuman. And somewhere in the shadows beyond the plateau, something stirred. A threat that had gone unnoticed. The humans had prepared the fortress. But would it be enough? The Zorvans did not know. But one thing was certain. They had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans were not just helpers. They were forces of nature, unstoppable and unyielding. And the builders' work had only begun. The sun rose slowly over Xelara, casting long shadows across the massive fortress the humans had built. The Zorvans had spent the night watching in awe, unable to sleep. They had never seen such power, such precision, and such confidence. The builders' machines had worked tirelessly, yet it was the humans themselves who held the true command. The commander stepped forward. His presence was calm but commanding. He walked among the Zorvans, his eyes scanning every detail of the plateau and surrounding mountains. "We need to know everything about this planet," he said simply. "Every risk, every weakness, every possible threat." The Zorvans exchanged nervous glances. To them, survival meant hiding, running, or negotiating. But humans thought differently. They planned, calculated, and acted before danger arrived. Velker, still filled with awe, asked, "Commander, why do you need to know everything?" "We only asked for shelter." The commander turned slowly, looking at Velker with eyes that seemed to pierce through him. "Shelter is not enough. Shelter is temporary. Safety comes from preparation, from knowledge, from strategy." The Zorvans nodded, but their minds struggled to understand. Knowledge, strategy, preparation. These were concepts they had never mastered. Humans, however, lived and breathed them. The commander called over other humans, some in uniform, others carrying devices the Zorvans did not recognize. They began to map the planet, scan the mountains, and analyze the valley below. Strange glowing lines appeared in the air, connecting points across the landscape. The Zorvans could only stare, unable to comprehend the complexity. A young Zorvan asked quietly, "Are they spies?" The commander heard, but only shook his head. "Not spies. Strategists. Builders. Protectors. We see everything, understand everything, and act accordingly. You will learn soon enough." Hours passed. The humans worked in complete silence, communicating only through subtle gestures and signs. Commanders pointed, builders moved quickly, and bombers hovered above in formation. It was as if the entire fortress, the humans, and even the machines were one mind, thinking, planning, readying. Velker followed the commander to a high tower. From there, the Zorvans could see the entire plateau, the mountains, and the forest beyond. "What do you see?" Velker asked. The commander pointed to the distant hills. "Threats, unknown forces, Predators. Not all visible, but all possible. We prepare for them all. That is the difference between survival and destruction. The Zorvans felt a chill. Humans did not wait for danger, they expected it. They did not hope for safety. They created it. As evening fell, the commander called the Zorvans together. He began to teach them, using simple words, diagrams, and gestures. You must understand the enemy before it attacks. Know the land. Know the machines. Know yourselves. Strategy is not weakness. It is strength. It is power without fear. Velker tried to absorb every word. The humans were not just fighting for themselves. They were teaching an entire alien species to think like them. It was overwhelming, but it was also inspiring. Suddenly, the bombers above shifted positions. Their engines hummed softly, scanning the horizon. The Zorvans turned, alarmed. A faint shimmer appeared in the distance, movement they could not yet understand. Potential threat, the commander said calmly, almost like it was a matter of fact. We will wait, observe, prepare. The Zorvans watched as the humans coordinated with flawless precision. Builders reinforced walls. Machines shifted positions. Commanders adjusted strategies. Every movement was calculated. Every action had purpose. The Zorvans had never seen anything like it. Velker whispered, "They are unstoppable." The commander overheard, but only smiled slightly. "We are not unstoppable. We are prepared. There is a difference. And preparation makes all the difference." Night fell, and the fortress glowed under artificial lights. The Zorvans slept lightly, listening to the hum of machines and the soft footfalls of humans patrolling. For the first time, they felt a strange mix of awe and security. Humans were not only protectors, they were masters of strategy, builders of strength, and teachers of a new way to survive. Somewhere beyond the mountains, shadows shifted. Velker sensed movement, but the humans were ready. Commanders studied patterns. Bombers hovered silently, and builders adjusted defenses. The Zorvans understood one truth. Humans did not simply react. They acted first. They calculated, prepared, and executed with precision. They were not just fighters. They were strategists, planners, and protectors beyond imagination. And as the twin suns of Xelara rose once more, the Zorvans knew the human commanders had changed everything. Shelter was not just walls or machines. Shelter was knowledge, preparation, and strength, and the humans had brought it in full force. Somewhere, beyond sight, the first threat of the planet stirred. The humans were ready, and the Zorvans, though still learning, would stand with them or fall behind. The fortress was alive. The humans were in command, and the Zorvans' fate was no longer entirely their own. It had shifted to the hands of the humans. The next morning, the orange skies of Xelara were alive with motion. Above the fortress, sleek machines hovered silently. The Zorvans had seen builders' machines move like living creatures, but these were different. Bombers. Their shapes were sharp and intimidating, cutting through the sky with quiet precision. Velker and a few other Zorvans watched on the ground, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. "Why are they here?" Velker whispered. "We only asked for shelter, not weapons." A bomber pilot, stepping down from his craft, overheard him. "These are not just weapons," he said calmly. "They are warning. They are preparation. We strike before danger arrives. We do not wait to react. We act." The Zorvans shivered. Strike before danger? It was a concept alien to them. Their species had always survived by fleeing or hiding. Humans were different. The commander joined them, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We prepare for everything. Threats are invisible, but we cannot be caught unaware. The bombers are part of our strategy. They protect, they scout, and they strike when needed." Velker tried to follow the human logic, but won't they scare the planet? The creatures? The commander smiled faintly. Better to be feared than surprised. The bombers moved into formation, engines humming softly, a sound like distant thunder. The Zorvans watched as humans climbed into the cockpits. Straps clicked and controls lit up with strange glowing panels. There was no panic, no hesitation, only confidence. Then the first flight test began. Bombers lifted smoothly. almost gliding across the sky. They scanned the mountains, the forests, even the distant valleys. Each movement was precise, each pattern calculated. The Zorvans could barely follow, their multi-eyed heads turning in disbelief. What are they doing? Velker asked a builder nearby. They are mapping the battlefield, the builder said. Not just for defense. For offense, too. They see everything, calculate everything, and act before anything can threaten the fortress. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the distance. Something moved fast, dark, and unseen. The Zorvans froze. The bombers reacted instantly. Engines roared and machines shifted positions, forming a protective net over the fortress. Velker whispered, "They can see it. They can see things we cannot." The commander nodded. "Threats come in many forms. We prepare for all of them. Humans do not wait. We act." Hours passed. The bombers continued their exercises, flying in complex patterns, testing agility, and firing dummy projectiles that exploded in brilliant sparks. The Zorvans gasped at every move. They had never imagined machines could move with such precision. They had never imagined a species could be so fearless. As evening fell, the bombers returned to the fortress, landing softly. The humans climbed out, wiping sweat and checking equipment. But there was no sign of fatigue. The Zorvans realized these humans were not just strong. They were tireless, methodical, and relentless. Velker approached the commander. "But are they dangerous? They could destroy the planet." The commander looked toward the horizon, then back at Velker. "They are dangerous to those who threaten peace. They are protectors to those who need it. That is the difference. We do not destroy for pleasure. We destroy to ensure survival." The Zorvans nodded slowly, still in awe. Shelter was no longer just walls. It was a fortress, yes, but it was also power, readiness, and unmatched strength. The bombers had shown them that humans did not wait for threats. They eliminated them before they arrived. As night fell, the fortress glowed under soft artificial lights. Bombers rested on their pads, engines humming quietly. Builders made small adjustments to walls and gates. Commanders reviewed maps and data. The Zorvans watched quietly, learning, understanding, and slowly trusting. Then, in the far distance, something stirred. A faint shimmer, barely noticeable, moved through the mountains. The Zorvans froze. This was the danger they had feared. The commander only nodded. The bombers lifted again, engines lighting the night sky. Their patterns were flawless, their reactions instant. The Zorvans realized humans did not fear danger. They controlled it, mastered it, and prepared for it like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Velker whispered to a fellow Zorvan, "They are not like us, they are unstoppable." The commander overheard, but only smiled faintly. "We are not unstoppable. We are ready. There is a difference, and that difference can save lives." The night passed with the fortress alive, glowing with light and motion. The Zorvans slept lightly, listening to the softened machines and the distant roar of bomber engines. For the first time, they felt safe. Humans had arrived, and they were not just builders or commanders. They were fighters, protectors, and strategists, all in one. And somewhere, beyond sight, the first real threat of the planet began to move. The humans were ready. The Zorvans knew their fate had changed. No longer were they merely survivors. Now, they were part of something greater, something powerful, unstoppable, and extraordinary. The bombers hovered silently above, watching, waiting, preparing. The humans had shown their power, and the planet, once hostile and empty, now felt alive and dangerous to anyone who dared threaten it. The first light of Xelara's twin suns revealed the fortress in all its glory. Towers rose high, walls gleamed under the sunlight, and the strange machines patrolled the perimeter. The Zorvans could not hide their awe. They had never imagined such power, and yet unease still lingered. Velker watched the mountains nervously. "Do you really think something will come?" he asked. The commander stood beside him, calm and steady. "It always comes," he said simply. "We prepare. That is what we do." Then, without warning, a shadow passed over the fortress. The Zorvans gasped. Through the mist of the mountains, dark shapes emerged, creatures they had never seen before. Towering, fierce, and fast, the attackers moved with deadly intent. They were here to conquer, to destroy, to claim the planet for themselves. The Zorvans panicked. We cannot fight them. We are weak. Velker shouted. The commander raised a hand. Do not fear. Watch, learn, and follow. Humans do not run. Humans fight. The fortress came alive. Bombers lifted swiftly into the sky, forming patterns that confused the attackers. Builders' machines shifted walls, creating barriers in real time. Commanders gave subtle signals, coordinating each movement with silent precision. The Zorvans could barely keep up. They watched as a bomber swooped low, releasing a controlled strike. The attack hit with pinpoint accuracy, stopping the enemy in its tracks. Another bomber followed, striking before the creatures could recover. Velker's jaw dropped. How do they do this? He whispered. A builder, adjusting a wall, answered calmly. They anticipate. They see what we cannot. Humans act before danger even touches us. The first wave of attackers reached the fortress. They charged the walls with raw strength, but the humans were ready. Bombers swooped down, launching strikes with mechanical precision. Machines patrolled the walls, moving to block gaps, to push attackers back. Commanders shouted orders in short, sharp commands, each perfectly timed. Velker had never seen anything like it. The humans were not afraid. They did not hesitate. Each strike was calculated, each move coordinated. And slowly, the Zorvans began to understand something profound. Humans did not simply survive. They dominated. The attackers roared, striking again and again, but the fortress held. Walls were reinforced instantly. Machines shifted positions, and bombers executed attacks the Zorvans could not even comprehend. One massive creature reached the gate, but a perfectly timed strike from above sent it crashing to the ground. Velker felt a mixture of fear and admiration. The humans were terrifying, but also magnificent. They had turned the fortress into a living weapon, a perfect blend of offense and defense. Hours passed. The battle continued, but the humans never faltered. They acted as one organism, each part supporting the other. The Zorvans, too frightened to move, could only watch as the humans drove the attackers back. At one point, a young Zorvan shouted, "They are winning! They are winning!" The commander nodded, but said nothing. The humans never celebrated prematurely. Their focus was absolute, their control complete. Every attack, every defense, every maneuver was deliberate. By nightfall, the first wave of attackers had been destroyed. The mountains were silent once again, except for the soft hum of human machines and the occasional roar of bombers circling above. The Zorvans were exhausted, trembling, and speechless. They had seen power unlike anything in their history. Velker approached the commander. We cannot thank you enough. You saved us." The commander shook his head. "You survived because you followed. You survived because you learned. This is not about thanks. This is about survival." The Zorvans nodded, slowly understanding. The humans had not just built walls, flown bombers, or commanded machines. They had created a force that anticipated, controlled, and dominated danger. And somewhere beyond the mountains, more shadows stirred. The first threat was gone, but the planet was not safe. The humans were ready. The Zorvans now understood a new truth. Their survival was no longer just their own. It rested in the hands of the humans, who fought not just to protect, but to win before danger even arrived. The fortress glowed under artificial lights. Machines moved silently. Bombers hovered above. Builders adjusted walls. Commanders planned for the next threat. And the Zorvans, finally beginning to believe in something greater, knew they had witnessed the birth of a new kind of power, one that would define the future of Xelara forever. The morning after the first attack, the fortress of Xelara stood strong and unbroken. The walls were scarred, the machines had marks of battle, but the humans had survived, and so had the Zorvans. Velker walked among the debris, watching builders repair walls, adjust machines, and reinforce towers. Bombers hovered quietly above, engines humming softly as if waiting for a signal. For the first time, Velker felt something he had never known: hope. The commander approached him. "You learned yesterday," he said simply. "Now it is time to learn more. You will fight alongside us. You will understand strategy, preparation, and coordination. Only then will you survive. The Zorvans looked nervous. They had survived by hiding, by fleeing, and by relying on luck. Fighting alongside humans, it was a concept beyond imagination. Velker raised his hand. We want to learn. But we are weak. The commander smiled faintly. Everyone is weak at first. Strength comes from action, training, and trust. Trust in yourselves and in us. And so, the humans began teaching. Builders showed the Zorvans how to operate machines, move walls, and repair structures quickly. Bombers demonstrated patterns in the sky, showing how to anticipate attacks. Commanders explained strategy in simple words, diagrams, and gestures. At first, the Zorvans struggled. Machines were complex. Patterns in the sky were confusing. Strategies were hard to grasp. But the humans were patient, guiding each alien carefully. Watch, learn, then act, they repeated. Velker practiced with a small group. He climbed into a machine, hesitating at first. A human placed a hand on his shoulder. Do not fear. Trust the machine. Trust yourself. He took a deep breath, and the machine moved. Slowly at first, then with more confidence. Velker felt a thrill he had never known. For the first time, he felt powerful, capable, and part of something greater. Other Zorvans followed. They moved walls, operated machines, and even assisted in coordinating defenses. Slowly, they began to understand the human's way of thinking. Plan, act, anticipate. The commander watched carefully. You are learning fast. But trust is not only in machines or strategy. Trust is in each other. You must fight together, think together, and rely on each other. That evening, the Zorvans gathered around the commander. He laid out a new plan, patrols, defenses, and watch patterns for potential threats. The Zorvans followed his instructions, executing tasks carefully under the human's guidance. Then, a distant sound came from the mountains. Movement. Shadows. Another threat. The Zorvans froze. Their hearts raced. The commander raised a hand. Remember what you learned. Trust yourselves. Trust each other. Trust us. Bombers lifted into the sky. Builders moved walls into new positions, and Zorvans followed human guidance, placing machines and barriers with precision. For the first time, they did not hesitate. They did not flee. They acted. The enemy appeared. Creatures taller and faster than before, their eyes glowing with hunger. But this time, the Zorvans were ready. They coordinated with humans, moving machines into defensive positions, blocking paths, and assisting with strategic strikes. Velker watched in awe as humans and Zorvans worked together seamlessly. Bombers struck with pinpoint accuracy, walls shifted instantly, and every action had purpose. The alliance was forming, stronger than any single species could have imagined. The battle ended as swiftly as it began. The attackers were driven back, retreating into the mountains. The fortress stood tall, intact, and more alive than ever. The Zorvans cheered softly, filled with pride and awe. The commander turned to Velker. You see now? Strength is not just humans. Strength is alliance, trust, coordination. Together, you can survive anything. Velker nodded, feeling a deep sense of understanding. Humans had taught them more than survival. They had taught them trust, strategy, and unity. The Zorvans now realized that together, they were no longer weak. They were formidable. That night, under the glowing lights of the fortress, the Zorvans gathered around the humans. They spoke in whispers, not out of fear, but in wonder. We have learned more in 2 days than we knew in our lifetimes, one said. The commander observed silently, satisfied. The Zorvans had begun to understand the human way. Act before danger arrives, trust each other, and never hesitate. And somewhere beyond the mountains, shadows stirred once more. But now, the humans and Zorvans were ready. Together, they were not just surviving. They were becoming a force no enemy could underestimate. The alliance was born. Trust was forged. And the fate of Xelara was no longer uncertain. It was in the hands of humans and their new allies. The morning sun rose over Xelara, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. The fortress, once a jagged collection of walls and towers, now looked like a living city. Machines moved smoothly along patrol paths. Bombers hovered silently above, and humans walked among the Zorvans, giving instructions, adjusting structures, and ensuring everything was in order. The Zorvans could hardly believe their eyes. The planet that had once seemed hostile and empty was now alive with human ingenuity. Where there had been rocks and dust, there were walls, towers, patrols, and lights. The humans had transformed the barren landscape into a fortress and a home. Velker walked among the machines, touching their smooth surfaces. "We asked for shelter," he whispered. "We never imagined this." A builder, standing beside him, smiled. "This is more than shelter. This is safety, and safety must be strong." The commander called the Zorvans to the central tower. From there, they could see the entire plateau and the surrounding mountains. The humans had not only built defenses, they had mapped the land, prepared for threats, and created a home. The Zorvans felt all mixed with pride. They had survived. They had learned. They had grown. "Today," the commander said, "we prepare for what comes next. Threats will arrive. They always do. But we are ready. We do not wait for danger. We act, and we act together." The Zorvans nodded, understanding the depth of his words. Humans had shown them a new way of life, one not based on fear, but on preparation, coordination, and courage. Suddenly, in the distance, a faint shimmer appeared. Movement among the mountains. The Zorvans froze. But the humans did not panic. Bombers lifted smoothly, engines humming softly. Builders adjusted machines along the walls. Commanders gave silent signals. Every action was deliberate, calculated, and precise. Velker whispered, "They are ready for anything." Indeed, the humans were ready. The shimmer in the distance revealed a new group of hostile creatures, larger and faster than before. But this time, the Zorvans did not hesitate. They moved with humans, helping, defending, and learning. Together, they were stronger than any single species could be. The attackers advanced, but the fortress responded as one organism. Bombers struck with precision, machines moved barriers instantly, and the humans coordinated the Zorvans flawlessly. Every threat was met before it could reach the walls. Every move was anticipated. By nightfall, the attackers were driven back into the mountains. The fortress stood unbroken. The humans had shown their strength, but the Zorvans had learned to trust themselves and their new allies. They were no longer merely survivors. They were part of something greater, a force capable of facing any threat. Velker turned to the commander. "We never imagined humans could be like this. Not just strong, but beyond anything we dreamed." The commander smiled faintly. "We are not beyond anything. We are prepared. That is the difference." The Zorvans walked through the fortress, marveling at every detail. Machines hummed softly. Walls stood tall. Towers reached into sky. The humans had not only built structures, they had built confidence, knowledge, and strength in the Zorvans themselves. Night fell, and the fortress glowed with lights and movement. Builders checked machines, bombers hovered silently, and commanders reviewed maps. The Zorvans gathered together, whispering among themselves. For the first time, they felt safe, powerful, and connected. Somewhere in the distance, shadows moved, threats that had once seemed unstoppable. But now, the humans and Zorvans stood together. They had learned from each other. They had trained. They had prepared. And together, they could face anything. The commander looked across the plateau. The future is not just survival. It is action, preparation, and unity. We create safety before danger comes. And in doing so, we shape the future. Velker watched the glowing fortress, the hovering bombers, and the busy builders. He felt a sense of hope he had never known. Humans had arrived not just to give shelter, but to change everything. They had transformed the planet, the Zorvans, and perhaps even the destiny of the galaxy. The fortress stood tall, alive, and ready. The humans were silent, confident, and unyielding. And the Zorvans realized a truth that would stay with them forever. Humans were not just protectors. They were forces of nature, builders of worlds, and masters of survival. And as the twin suns of Xelara sank beneath the horizon, the planet no longer seemed hostile. It was alive. It was safe. It was a new home. The humans had arrived. The Zorvans had survived. And together, they had created a new future, one of courage, unity, and unstoppable strength. Days had passed since the last attack on Xelara. The fortress now stood as a symbol of human ingenuity and strength. Towers reached into the sky. Walls gleamed under the twin suns, and strange machines moved tirelessly along patrol paths. Bombers hovered silently above, scanning the mountains and forests beyond. The Zorvans walked among the humans, still in awe. They had survived attacks, learned new skills, and witnessed powers they could barely comprehend. Yet the most incredible part was not the machines, the walls, or the bombers. It was the humans themselves. Velker approached the commander. "We have learned so much more than we imagined. But why do you help us? Why go so far for a species so different?" The commander looked across the plateau, watching builders repair walls and bombers glide above. Because survival is not just about oneself. Strength is shared. Courage grows when it is given. Humans do not act for glory. We act for what must be done. The Zorvans exchanged glances. They had expected power to be feared, maybe even dangerous. But the humans were different. Their power was calm, purposeful, and protective. The fortress was alive. Every machine moved with intent. Every wall, every tower, every bomber was a part of a larger plan. And the Zorvans understood. Humans did not simply protect. They teach, build, and inspire. That evening, the Zorvans gathered to watch the sunset. The twin suns cast long shadows across the fortress, giving an almost magical glow. Velker whispered to a young Zorvan, "We asked for shelter. We never imagined we would gain hope, strength, knowledge." The young Zorvan nodded. "And perhaps something more, a new way to live." The commander approached silently. "You have seen what humans can do. But remember, this is not the end. It is the beginning. The galaxy is full of dangers, planets, creatures, and forces beyond imagination. But with preparation, unity, and courage, you can face anything." The Zorvans listened carefully. They had survived the first threat. They had learned from the humans. They had become part of something greater. And now, they understood that the universe itself was a challenge, and humans were the key to mastering it. Suddenly, a soft hum rose from the horizon. The Zorvans froze. The commander, calm as always, signaled for the bombers to rise. They moved with silent precision, scanning the mountains and forests. The Zorvans realized that even now, humans were always vigilant, always ready. Velker looked around at his people. They were no longer just survivors. They were allies. They were learners. And they were part of a force that could shape the future. Night fell. Lights from a fortress reflected on the rocky plains. Machines moved silently. Bombers hovered above. Builders continued their work. And the humans stood at the heart of it all, silent, confident, unyielding. The Zorvans realized something extraordinary. Humans were not just a species. They were a legacy of courage, preparation, and strength. Wherever humans went, they transformed worlds. They brought hope where there was fear, power where there was weakness, and unity where there was chaos. Velker whispered to himself, "We asked for shelter, and they gave us a future." The commander looked at the stars, distant galaxies twinkling above. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. "We do not wait for danger. We act, we protect, and we create a future worth fighting for." The Zorvans nodded, hearts filled with awe and determination. They had witnessed humans at their finest. They had seen commanders, builders, and bombers in action. They had learned courage, strategy, and unity. And they knew one simple truth. Humanity was unstoppable, not because of machines, bombs, or walls, but because they were to act, to protect, and to lead. As the night deepened, the fortress glowed under artificial light, a beacon in a hostile world. Somewhere, unseen threats stirred, but the humans and their new allies were ready. The Zorvans had grown stronger. They had learned to trust, to fight, and to survive. The legacy of humans had begun on Xelara, and it would not end there. And in the silence of the twin suns, the Zorvans understood one last thing. The universe had changed. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same.